Hi, I'm Robert, product owner of Deploy Now. So we are here right in the heart of the Deploy Now office in our IONOS headquarters in Karlsruhe, Germany. We have some exciting news to share with you, so I would like to show the agenda of today's topics. So we will start with a little introduction of all the team members of Deploy Now, and you will get to know why they like Deploy Now so much. I will continue with a little keynote presentation on our newest features. We will look at it in a little screencasting session with our developer Eric and to see how everything feels in action. And we will close today's video with a talk session together with the engineering team. So let's head over to the team and hear why they like Deploy Now so much. Hi Philipp. So what's so cool about Deploy Now?
Deploy Now is great because you can push your changes as soon as possible into the web.
I'm especially proud to have so many talented engineers to craft and deliver a new hosting experience like Deploy Now.
With Deploy Now, we want to give developers home with the product and its community.
I would say it's definitely a community baby, created for devs by devs. And now you just have to lean back, enjoy the show and watch the baby grow.
We as developers wanted to provide a product for developers that automates all necessary steps for their deployments.
Working on Deploy Now is somehow unique because we are basically the target group of our own product. Therefore, it's a lot easier to understand our customers and to find ideas for some new interesting features.
Yeah, thanks Marlon. This is of course a big advantage. Let's head over to a keynote. So we started Deploy Now as a tool to deploy static sites directly via GitHub. GitHub certainly is one of the biggest developer communities worldwide with more than 200 million repositories created by more than 70 million users. Static sites, on the other side, are an increasingly relevant ecosystem with more than 300 static site generators created by the community and countless microservices you can use to enhance your static site to a full web stack. With Deploy Now, it was very important for us to not start from scratch and reinvent the wheel, but instead build upon existing features on the market. So we decided to integrate two solutions developed directly by GitHub. The first one is GitHub Apps. We use GitHub Apps to get all the permissions we need to interact with your code. We also use GitHub Apps to then install the workflow to your repository and to manage the secrets that we or you need during your workflow. The workflow itself is handled by GitHub Actions. So GitHub Actions is an open solution of GitHub that you can use to define workflows directly in a file inside your repository. We set up this file for you, and every time you do a git push, we trigger the entire workflow. So the dependencies you need are installed, and we execute the build step, and the results are deployed to the infrastructure. This seamless integration of coding and hosting comes with three major benefits for the user. So the first one is automation. A lot of steps that you maybe have executed manually in the past are now completely automated in a single workflow. This workflow is initially set up by Deploy Now, but you can further customize it anytime. One big advantage of GitHub itself is that it's very nice for collaboration. So when working on a code project in a team, developers can open additional feature branches when working on a new feature, so they don't get into each other's way when working on the code. So with Deploy Now, we build a connection here and not only deploy your main branch to production, but also your feature branches to a staging environment. Every stage is then automatically equipped with a preview URL, and this URL can be shared with clients or your colleagues to get feedback on your project, to check your website in different browsers or on different devices. So currently, Deploy Now is still limited to the use case of static sites only. But today I would like to define a broader vision for the product. So Deploy Now should be the Git-centric hosting platform for all your applications. So this means that we want to unlock the same developer convenience, not only for static sites, but for any use case you might have. So this is of course a very broad mission, and today we want to announce the first big step towards that goal. So in addition to single-page applications and static site generators already running on Deploy Now, Deploy Now also supports PHP apps, including MariaDB support and a smart framework setup for Laravel and Symfony. So when taking a look at the whole deployment pipeline, you can imagine it like this. So you do a git push, and afterwards we install all the dependencies needed. Afterwards, the build step is executed, and you can define a set of paths that should be kept persistent on your runtime. All remaining path, including a config file that you can template directly in the user interface, and your GitHub secrets are then transferred to the runtime. Afterwards, you have the option to define a set of commands that are executed, and afterwards, your app should be run smoothly on the IONOS infrastructure. So this all sounds nice in theory, but you must be curious how this looks like in action. So let's head over to our developer Eric. He's already waiting for us in the coding box, and have a little screencast session. Hi Eric.
Hi Robert. Come in, let's get started. Today I want to show you how to deploy a Laravel app to deploy now with Deploy Now via GitHub Actions. Starting point is a Laravel project with the newest version 9.9. It's a freshly created Laravel project with the Laravel package Jetstream to add some features for registration, authentication, and so on. And I use the Inertia Vue.js stack with Jetstream. And nothing more is in this project, in this repository. So now I want to show how to put it to deploy now with our new setup wizard. The project I want to show you is at GitHub, at my space. It's this repository. Let's start. That's our dashboard, and I want to add a new project. So here I have the possibility to take a project from my own connected GitHub account. That are the repository. One repository is in use. And I have also the possibility to take sample projects or a third-party repository. In this case, I want to take the project that I created. That repository has one branch, the main branch. I want to take it. Let's go to the next step. And that was the detection. The little circle was a detection, and our detection detected a Laravel. And for Laravel, we need a PHP project in Deploy Now. It fits. And I could also take a static project, but it makes no sense because Laravel needs PHP. So let's go to the next step, build. Our detection detects two build steps, one Node.js step and one Composer step. Let's go inside. The detection detected that Node is used in version 16 and we need two commands, npm ci and npm run production. I could add more commands with suggestions, but in this case it's enough. That are the commands I need. Here are the environment variables that goes to this build action. Site URL and CI are prepared from us. I don't need more variables here. So let's go to Composer. We detected version 8 because the constraints in the Laravel Composer JSON, but I want to take the newest PHP version 8.1. Composer 2 is the latest, it's okay. And we detected the commands Composer install with optimized autoloader and no dev, so no dev dependencies. And the command to generate artisan key, but I don't want it. I delete it because I want to add the key in the GitHub secrets. Here I have the possibility to add environment variables too, but I don't need one. I also have the possibility to add other build steps and run a command or another composer, but in this case it's enough. And last thing at this page is the output path, so the directory that gets copied to IONOS web space at the end. In this case it's the whole repository, so the document root. Let's go to runtime. Runtime is a part that happens on IONOS web space, so I need a PHP runtime, for example, at build actions at GitHub, and I need a PHP version at IONOS web space. In most cases, it's the same, so 8.1. Here I have the possibility to create a database and create a mail account. And if I set this checkbox, it's automatically generated and stored in variables that I can use in my environment file. Our detection knows that in most cases in Laravel projects, the sample end file is under .env.sample, and so it takes the content of this file, put it here and say, okay, it should be the .env file on the web space. Let's rework this file and put some variables here. So at name I want confetti for life. Environment I want to be that it's production and no debug. And the app key I could generate it with the artisan command, or I want to store it in the GitHub secrets. Let's do this. I start my local environment here with Laravel Sail, very easy. And then I generate a key and show it. I copy this and put it in the GitHub secrets with the name Laravel app key. And yes, I want to store it as a secret so nobody can read it out. And if I want to add this GitHub secret in this environment file, I make this double curly braces dot secrets and dot, and then the name of the GitHub secret, in this case Laravel app key, close the curly braces, and that's it. In the deployment, it's changed with a real Laravel app key we defined here. So app URL, there is a variable too. It's not a secret, it's a runtime variable. The difference is the runtime variable is generated in deployment and GitHub secrets are in the GitHub store before. So dot runtime dot, and the name is app URL. So now there are variables and log is okay, it's a stack. Database. So we generate a database here and we generate this with this variables. So user, password, host and name. And if we want to put it to our end file, we need .runtime 2 and then .key. So let's take it for the host. It's double curly braces, .runtime, .db, .host. So that's it. I have prepared it here to that you don't have to see me writing so long. And this part puts the runtime variables for db to our .env file on web space later. Same with mail. I could use mail services like Mailgun, AWS, SES or something, or use an own SMTP server, but I can create a SMTP here too. And that are the variables if I want to send mails with this created mail account. It's a GitHub secret, yes. Here it's a database, it's a runtime variable. Mail is a GitHub secret. And if I want to address it, double curly braces, .secrets, and then the name, for example, IONOS mail host, close the curly braces. So I prepared it too. Looks like that. So that's it. Let's go to deployment. Deployment is the thing that happens on our web space when deployment or build at GitHub was successful. We have two parts, Bootstrap recurring. Bootstrap happenings every first build of every branch, recurring the other times. We can force the Bootstrap too, but most important, only the first build is Bootstrap, the others are recurring. So we have the excludes. Excludes are the folders that are not copied from our GitHub build to the web space. For example, node modules, you don't need it at your web space because you build your assets at GitHub. And here are the post-deployment remote commands. For example, to put Laravel in maintenance mode, set file permissions, migrate the database, and so on. Things that you don't do at GitHub, but at our web service. And we detect this command. You can add more if you have special commands that should be run when deployment is finished, and you can remove them. And for me, it's okay. And this would be Bootstrap, and the post-deployment remote commands. There would be the place for you to see the database, for example, because only the first deployment of every branch you want to see the database. The other deployments you want to keep the data in the database. Let's take a look at recurring. There are excludes too. Yeah, it fits. It's the same like Bootstrap with the storage folder, because we want to keep the storage folder of Laravel, because data goes in it, use data goes in it. Yes, and then here are pre-deployment remote commands, because before we start the deployment and the copy of the files, we want to take Laravel in the maintenance mode, then copied files, and then we have the post-deployment remote commands, so set file permissions, optimize, clear, and so on and so on. Yeah, let's go to the summary and look if all is right. Yes, it's the right repository. We have Node.js build step with this both commands. We have the composer with this command. We have our output path. We have the .env file with the variables that are swapped in the deployment. We create a database. We have the htaccess for our web space, and we have the deployment commands. Wonderful. Let's make it happen and create a project. So now the project gets created. It needs a few seconds. I show you what we do, and there is the project. It's created at our dashboard, and that's the detail view of it. And now let's go to GitHub and view the build logs. Here we see that there's running a deployment. We can see there are fetch project data, then set up node, set up composer, and then the deployment action. So then I show you what's happening in our repository. I pull the main branch, and you see there is something happened. What's happened? There was a commit at IONOS deploy now workflow. There is a .deploy now folder in your repository. There is a template of the .env file. There's the template of the .htaccess file. And there is a config YAML where the commands, the post-deployment and recurring Bootstrap commands are in it. So the things we defined in the wizard. And there is a .github folder with the deploy now workflow. And they are the IONOS actions. So this action, for example, to copy it to the web space and set up composer and build node assets and so on and so on. So if you want to change a thing, so you would you like to use composer without nodev or so, you can delete it here, save it and commit it to your repository, and that's it. So you can change the things you are set up in the project wizard. Same with the .env template, same with htaccess template, and same with the config YAML. You can change it with your editor, commit it, and then it's happening. So let's take a look what our deployment at GitHub does. So I'm here at build node assets. It takes a little time. You know it from your own computer. Yes, in the meantime, we could look here at the tail. We have a domain, and this is it's a domain you can use to see your page, but you can also use a own domain. Here are all your IONOS domains, and if I want to connect a domain or a subdomain, I can do it here, select it, and then it's done. And then I have a real domain for my project. So if we take a look at the deployment, we created the database, and that's the deploy to IONOS action. So copying all files, and then migrating database. And so that are the post-deployment commands of the Bootstrap. So let's take a look here. Yeah, we have a screenshot. We have an up and running Laravel application and a little bit of confetti.
so we really hope you like the new user experience. As a last agenda point for today's session, we prepared a little developer talk together with Markus, Philip and Alex. They are already waiting in the meeting room, so let's head over to them. So hi guys. Before we jump into the topics, could you maybe quickly introduce yourself?
Yes, hi, I'm Philip. I'm here since the beginning of this year. I worked on the new wizard and already worked on some new topics like the new flat design, which will be released in the next few weeks.
Hi, I'm Markus. I'm one of those guys working on Deploy Now from the beginning. I own over 20 years of experience in hosting solutions. Despite of my role as team lead, I kept passion about open source and web technologies.
I'm Alex, a full-stack developer for the Deploy Now team, and in my spare time I enjoy time with my family and making music.
Alex, Deploy Now started with static sites and now supports the full LAMP stack. Which new use cases does this unlock for the user?
So with the new PHP mode, it's possible to have stateful PHP applications running with the Deploy Now workflow. In addition to that, it's also possible to increase the functionality for the static builds to use the PHP app as an API to consume in the static site.
So Deploy Now became a much broader platform when it comes to use cases. Markus, what would you say makes Deploy Now special?
In my eyes, Deploy Now makes special the high degree of automatization. Therefore, we try to scan the project up front to get as much as possible information out of the repo. With this information, we try to find the right building steps, pre-fill data, and use defaults where possible.
So there's a lot of focus on detection of what is inside the repo and then setting everything up with pre-fills. Philip, as a front-end developer, you have a lot of intersections with the user experience. For which kind of user did you build Deploy Now?
There are several types of users. We built it for both, like for the users who wanted a easy and guided setup, or the users who want to change every detail in the configuration. You can do both, and we are glad that we can serve both of them what they want.
So if I always click on next, I can trust you that everything will work in the end, but I can also customize every detail.
Exactly.
So Deploy Now was invented in your development team. So it's a product from developers for developers. Where in the product can I see that?
We try to keep it short and simple, rather than inventing everything again and again. For example, as CI/CD pipeline, we use GitHub Actions. We try to reuse as many building blocks as we have. Deploy Now tries not to replace any tool chain. It's more like the glue code of a new hosting experience.
We are in close exchange with our customers. The customers can report bugs directly in Deploy Now or can redirect to GitHub issues to ask for feature requests.
And last but not least, we give the developer the freedom to use what language and framework he wants to use, and especially with the new PHP project type, we also give the developer the ability to run PHP applications like Laravel or Symfony with Deploy Now.
Alex, during working on this new feature, you've supported on both sides, front-end and middleware. What would you say was the most challenging part of the new release?
So we had to improve the detection what is inside the repository. So we now not only detect the static site generators, but also PHP runtimes. We still need, and in some places, especially for the PHP project, there are some questions that the user has to answer us, and it was a challenge to ask the questions in a way that the user knows what he has to answer and not ask too many answers, but still he has the ownership of the workflow and can change it afterwards.
Alex, you've mentioned earlier that it's very important to us to be framework agnostic. That means that we don't want to tell the user which framework to use. Of course, when we create own code, we have to decide on a technology stack we want to use. Philip, when creating the Deploy Now documentation that is also hosted on Deploy Now itself, which framework did we select and why?
We decided for GridSum for multiple reasons. We have a huge knowledge of Vue in our team, and we wanted to use a static site generator. And then we saw that they support GraphQL, and that was interesting for us, so we decided for GridSum.
So the documentation is a nice example of multiple developers collaborating on a project. Alex, how does collaboration work on Deploy Now?
If it's a developer team working with Deploy Now or a single developer, we think the best way is to use feature branches, and normally it starts on the machine of the developer, so he develops the feature, gets it running and fixed and everything, and when he pushes this feature branch to GitHub, Deploy Now takes this commit and deploys this instance to or this code base to a separate staging environment, so the developer can check with another device or with the real runtime the Deploy Now provides. And normally, if it's a team, there would be a pull request. Another developer will look at the code, and when everything is merged into the production branch again, Deploy Now will update the production environment.
So as you described, coding and hosting becomes a much more seamless process with Deploy Now. Markus, when taking a look at the entire developer's tool chain, which changes would you expect in the future?
If I look back in my career, from the beginning, there's a lot of change. As I started, the truth lays in the local machine. In the meanwhile, I would say everything is almost remote. You have for all things some services, and that's a trend, I would say. We try to cover also with Deploy Now, that it is possible for everybody to deploy at any time without a hassle.
So, as we are talking about the future, which new features would you like to develop for Deploy Now personally?
So, starting with the PHP projects, there are still some things we want to improve, like detecting even more information that's already in the repository, and also we want to get even better feature branch support with the database.
We want to check for additional runtimes, so we can support more frameworks in the future.
Last but not least, give us your feedback. We are depending on your feedback, and you can directly give us a feature request on GitHub.
So that's important to mention. We always have resources to react directly to your feedback, and you can be an active part of your agenda. So I want to close today's talk session with a quick Q&A round. So I will just ask a very short question, and you can give me a very short answer. I would always start with Markus and then go into this direction. So for your portfolio website, static or dynamic website?
I'm convinced about the Jamstack, so I would choose static.
Static built with GridSum.
Static as well.
So for your e-commerce shop, Jamstack or Lampstack?
In this case, I would choose the Lampstack.
Jamstack and consuming a shopping cart via API.
Jamstack.
File-based settings or settings in the user interface?
Both. I want to have a kickstart, and after that I want to have the full control.
File-based Git version.
I will go with the user interface.
When doing a smaller change, opening a new branch for that or quickly commit on main?
I have to admit, I would commit on main. As an excuse, I do not develop anymore, so.
Feature branch.
If it's a single line commit, I would definitely push it on main, but if it's like 2 or 3, I would definitely let another developer look over it.
Linux, Mac or Windows?
Mac for sure.
Linux.
Mac.
Server in the basement or renting one at a professional hoster?
Renting one. I don't have the time for maintaining.
For the stuff running locally at home, home server, but for a website targeting the internet, Deploy Now.
Renting one as well.
Your favorite framework?
It's Vue at the moment.
GridSum.
Ionic with Vue.
Tabs or spaces?
Spaces.
Spaces.
Tabs.
So that was already the last question. So thanks a lot, guys, for your time and all the insights. If you are now interested in Deploy Now, you can find the link for the registration in the box below, also the link for documentation and our feature request board. Thanks a lot and Have fun with Deploy Now. Goodbye.